watch your dreams unfold. Let it come around and let it breathe over me. It's time to go away into the light. I feel the calming energy. I see the darkness coming, and I'm calling you to help me set me free. I'm calling for you. I'm calling for you. I'm calling for you.
Throwing caution to the wind. I'll take a chance and let you in. Just take my hand and take me home tonight. We defeat all impossibilities. Yeah, you and me. We'll take our hearts and run free into the wild. Into the wild.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our episode 4 of the College Rainbow Six podcast. Today we are joined by Cherish and Zigolo. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you guys doing? Cherish?
Fine. How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. We got moss on a rolling stone, so it's wild adventure. How are you doing, Zigolo?
I'm doing great, man. You know, it's been a crazy ride for myself as well. This past week in general. So
Staying safe in the COVID times?
Talking to all of you.
Staying safe in COVID times?
Of course, yeah. Makes it easy when you're a player, right?
Hell yeah. I was laughing. I saw the Space Station Gaming guys. They recently moved into a gaming house, I think, before all this COVID stuff started. And I saw them all, like, quarantined together. And I was just like, wait, they're breaking protocol? What are they doing? And then I was like, oh, wait, they moved into a gaming house together. They're not breaking anything. I was like, they have to live with each other.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So for the topic of today, we're kind of talking about the gist of differences between the collegiate scene, the tier 3 scene, tier 2 scene, and then all the way up to the pro scene. We have Zigolo here, who's been through kind of a wide variety of almost all three of them. We're starting first with University of Buffalo, right?
Yes.
University of Buffalo, and then actually here, let's go into this. Tell us your wild story through Rainbow Six.
All right. I mean, I started about 2 years ago on a little-known org called Apache Esports. We, in my first roster, made it to like the USN online quals, and we played the old Obey roster with like Skies and all of them. Obviously, that didn't fare too well for us, or else maybe my future would have been a little bit different. But since then, I was bouncing around T3 teams, playing when I could, was balancing school and whatnot, all the other stuff. And then about like 8 months ago, with a few people I knew at UB, started a Rainbow Six team there. Competed for months on end, played in CEA, tried to get in the CRSL, we'd even make that. But, yikes. And about like 3 months ago, I mean, after I was playing on that team a lot and I felt like I grew a lot as a player, we, or at least myself, got offered a chance to play on Valkyrie. Love all those boys, by the way, if any of them are here. But played with them for about 2 months, got a lot more experience, played in like the higher ends of T3, ESA Invite, good leagues like that, and then right before, all the news with the Canadian Pro League, like the division, all that starting up, I got a crazy opportunity from my good friend Omega to join on as their 5th, take that American slot, and try to see if we can make it big, and we did. And so I'm here right now, I guess.
Hell yeah. What are some of the kind of like hardships and struggles you faced along the way?
Definitely just the balance of life responsibilities in Siege. I mean, that's a big thing with T3 and even collegiate as well. Is like you have a huge commitment to like your future. Obviously, when you go to college and you're studying, so the time you have in general is you have to make a good use of it. And I mean, now I graduated. I am playing on a team, so like I have all the time in the world, right? But in those days, like trying to make a name for myself, and trying to become a better player and around the collegiate T3 scene, it's a big commitment, honestly, for anyone who's doing that. So yeah, I applaud everyone who's trying to go and make that dream a reality, because I know it's definitely a very, very taxing one, but very rewarding as well. So
hell yeah. How many hours a day were you spending practicing?
Back in the day, I mean, I would try my best on a lot of T3 rosters. We'd try to do dry runs an hour before, and then 3-map scrim usually. So probably about 4 hours, like as a team playing together. And then, I mean, obviously, if you want to try to improve as well outside of the game or try to enjoy it in a non-comp scene, like I would play a lot of ranked as well. So I was playing Siege a lot. I was staying up pretty late nights in college in the dorms. It was a grind. It was a legit grind, but
yeah, hey, it paid off. You're here where you are now, and that's something to be well admired for.
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Let's go ahead and hop right into our questions here. So for our first question, we want to talk about what are the differences between the college Rainbow Six scene and then the pro scene. So first, Cherish, I know you are a huge follower of all the scenes above, and you're a huge fan of Rainbow Six, period. From your point of view as kind of an outsider looking in, what do you think are some of the core differences between these, and what are some things that they can improve on?
So, for those who are unaware, I'm the captain, head, whatever, for Virginia Commonwealth's R6 teams. So even internally, something that I can tell differently is my team is a lot more casual than teams such as like Akron or FIU. I can at least assume, like these higher level teams, like even T3, T2 teams, you know, even there, that's I think a big difference would probably be just like how rigorous the schedule for some of these teams gets. Like, I mean, like Zig said, they dry run for an hour or two before scrims sometimes, and then they go into like best of 3 scrims, or I've seen like teams say like looking for 4 map scrims for T3 or T2, and I mean, just by the nature of college and collegiate siege, we don't have the time to put into that. So, I mean, if you're not, or if you are scrimming 4 maps a night, you're losing out on something, whether it's your sleep or your classes are struggling or something. Like, you can't have, like, off the top of my head, you can't have a perfect sleep schedule, an insane siege schedule, and great grades, I think, unless you're like superhuman or taking extremely easy classes. So I think off the bat, like the first thing is just the time commitment that you are allowed in the pro scene, or even the amateur scene, and then from there, it's just like those people are taking it as their job, or like that's their pathway to a potential job. And so it's like you listen to these pro comms and stuff, and they're like screaming and cheering after every round win and stuff, or they're like immediately going after what to fix after round losses and stuff. And obviously we did some of that in collegiate, but like at the end of rounds, it wasn't like we were, you know, one step closer to pro league or challenger or anything. It was just, all right, cool, we won around, go next type of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think it also depends too on like kind of what you want to do with your career. I think there's a lot of people like the collegiate teams that are just kind of like, let's win the collegiate league. Let's do our best to do our best here, essentially, and make it as far as possible. But then I think there's people, kind of like in your case, Zigalo, players that want to go further. They want to be in that pro league. They want to strive to be the next Bolo kind of thing, and be this sick, awesome, amazing player. What is your experience kind of contrasting what Cherish is saying here, Zigalo? Do you think there's people that put in more of a grind than the average collegiate player, and that's kind of what gets them successful? Or do you think there's more like tricks and nifty things that you as a player unlocked to find your way into pro league?
I mean, I think Cherish definitely hit the nail on the head. I mean, even myself playing on my UB team, you know, no offense, everyone. I know everyone has their own sort of, I guess, availability and even drive for like how far they want to go in siege, right? So like, you know, myself at least, like I came into collegiate after playing in T3 and like trying to compete at least at a T2 level. So like my goal was to always just get better, improve. Obviously I wanted to play collegiate as well and play with people that I knew and have fun and get UB on the map. But yeah, I mean, I agree. There's definitely like, at least I consider myself like I always had that end goal of like, I want to see how far I can get. I want to see if I can become one of the best. Still on that grind right now, of course, because I feel like just making pro league isn't good enough. So
Yeah.
we are really I'm really just every day just trying to put more time and as much commitment as I can into improving as a player and as a person, as a teammate, a leader, whatever you say. So
Now you got to win
I
pro
think
league.
as well, like, yeah, exactly. But like, you know, I agree though, because like there's definitely people in collegiate that, you know, they want to play to have fun. Like I said, like their main goal is to have fun. They love the game, and obviously like they I guess the tough thing is like, I guess the esports culture in general, like it's very hard to, I guess, quote unquote, make it, right? Like
Yeah.
to be someone who can live full time off of playing a game like Siege. So like, obviously like they're in college, they have a great opportunity in front of themselves with like an education, the ability to go out and, you know, work in a job that they love, hopefully in like a degree that they studied and whatnot. So
It's very risky too. I think that's the big skill
very
for me.
risky.
Yeah.
Like
Same
talking
as
about all
well,
these
I mean-
Overwatch League players that come into the scene and they're like 19, like fresh out of high school, and I'm just like, what is going on here? Like you have no fallback. If you fail here, you are literally like, I am 22. I do not have a college education. I do not have any formal work experience. I maybe worked at like Dairy Queens over the summer once, but it's just like, how do you get back into the industry after taking such a huge risk like that? And I think that's where
Absolutely.
like collegiate can really come into play here, and I think that is huge component of that. So how's like balancing some of the risk of like going all in? I mean, I don't know how old you are, but
I am 21 actually.
21. Wow. Okay. Wow. You just finished your graduation too at 21.
Yes.
I'm over here at 24 and I still have not graduated.
Hey man, everyone goes at their own pace, right? There's no perfect time. There's no right time. It's only what's good for you. So
Yeah. So I guess
good on you, man.
going back to this, like, what do you think? Like, what are you looking for? Like, are you all in on this, or like, what do you? Because even if you fail, or not even, I'm not assuming you fail, but after you retire as a pro player, usually they retire around like 26 at the very latest. Like looking at like Afromove, for example, 26, 27 is like the late. The early is like 24. What do you plan to do for the rest of your life? Are you going to go back to computer science?
You know, that is definitely something I'm even considering right now, is because, I mean, I graduated like a month ago. I graduated probably like a month and a half ago. So I had a little bit of free time before playing through the Canadian Pro League quals. But
Yeah.
I mean, in my head, my goal, like even before I made it, or at least what I had it set in stone in my mind was like, hey, I might go back and get a master's. So here I am right now. I am in Pro League and I have a massive time commitment, and I'm still debating like, is it even worth trying to go and like put in even more time to get a master's degree on top of my bachelor's? Like, that is something that I'm even like concerned about, if I can feasibly manage that commitment to both and excel at both, because obviously I don't want to just get by.
Yeah.
And like, it would be great. I obviously, like, you know, there's a lot to get from a master's, a lot to gain. So like, that would be awesome. But I know like it would definitely impact the amount of time I could commit to this team and my teammates on living.
Mhm.
And on the same token, like you were saying, I mean, if it all goes south somehow, and like obviously I might end up having to take time off from starting my master's. Maybe that's something I'm trying to debate in my own head as well. My options of like maybe pushing that off to like 6 years, hopefully, and just seeing if I can 6 years, 6 months, and seeing what happens from now till then. But it's an everyday sort of thought that's in the back of your head. Is like, you know, I have to make sure that I'm set on the path I'm going, or at least like I have to make sure that the path I'm going on is one that I can feasibly, like, it has longevity, I suppose. So I'm really taking everything day by day. So I'm really excited. My first match is Friday, so we are definitely, you know, the outcome of that and the outcome of the season is going to play a lot in my mind into where I sort of go for next, I guess, I suppose.
Yeah. For perspective
Esports
too, he's got a
really
scrim
is-
after this.
Yeah.
Esports really is a dangerous profession to get into, if I'm
Mhm.
being honest. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could do it because it's so anxiety-inducing. Like, if you get dropped or something randomly, that's it. You got to look for a new team, or you got to try to find a job that's not esports. Pretty much.
Well, I mean,
So
Well,
the-
even in the casting side, not even like the playing side is really sketchy, because like if anyone's been paying attention to like the face it change for Siege now, there's no path to higher levels. Like
Yeah.
there's no community
Yeah.
casting.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of like stranded right now at doing T3 until hopefully something opens up or switch games, because like already I've been casting for 7-8 months and I'm already faced with like my first big dangerous like crossroad type deal.
big roadblock.
I mean, a lot of that's pretty normal too. Like we were talking to, there was a panel on the Uconnect Collegiate Rising that we did this last weekend that had the new head of Collegiate at Faceit, and then it also had the previous head that founded Collegiate League of Legends, made by Riot way back when. And it was interesting to hear the two debate back and forth. The head of, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but the head of Faceit was basically saying along the lines of, yeah, it's good to have grassroots, but we have to do it this way to grow the scene. And then the head of the Jaws, who was building Riot out, was basically saying you need grassroots. You need to have these tiers that build into it. You need to have like what Cherish is talking about. You need to have the ESL community casters. So it's basically if you just cut off all the bottom, then your top is going to suffer in the next couple of years. You're just going to lose that matriculation of upcoming students, upcoming talent, upcoming players, upcoming everything, and it just becomes harder and harder and harder to train in. So I'm going to be very interested to see just how the ecosystem of Rainbow Six as a whole kind of fares over the next couple of years. It's going to be really interesting to watch. With that, though, it comes with a lot of expansion, including this new Canadian League, or this new prevalence in the Canadian League. What are you guys' thoughts on these changes with Face It, on what we're talking about, the community versus pure competitive?
Are you talking on like the introduction of the Canadian League?
Yes.
And what are our thoughts on expanting?
Well, first expansion. Expansion is interesting, first of all, period. But then also what we're talking about, where there's certain paths that have been cut off entirely by changing over to Face It, and a lot of Face It's revolutions in their formatting. So this can be more broad about talking about formatting as well. Just what are your thoughts on Face It's new leagues?
I think the expansion's good. But I think with the expansion, you also need to expand with community casters and such.
Mm-hmm.
So cutting off the community casters as a whole was a poor decision, in my opinion. Because now you have a lot more games, but you're basically cutting off the amount of content that you can give. And it's even less than you had with ESL, where you were letting teams stream and cast their CL matches. So they almost cut themselves short and screwed themselves in the tier 2 and tier 3 scenes.
Yeah. Cherish, what are your thoughts?
From there, I mean, it's, it'd be nice if we could have community casting pathways and stuff to even stream games that otherwise wouldn't be streamed. But like, I don't know, though this is more critical of the broadcasting done so far than the expansion itself. I'll probably get into that in a sec. But like, I don't know, they the last week they had one USCL and one Canadian CL games streamed. There are 8 or 10 there's 8 USCL teams. Like, to have 6 teams all of a sudden not have VODs, strats, anything, both for themselves and opponents to go over for prep for later weeks. Like, that is, I mean, I don't want to be too critical, but that's like really
harsh.
Yeah.
Forget about that too for a second. Think about the business side of that. So I'm basically going to, like, with ESL's league, I was basically going to them as like SSG and basically saying, I would like to do this. You would have this much promo for each one of your games. A logo would hit on each one of your, on the jerseys that they're wearing. That would be on camera. Your team would be, our Space Station Gaming would pop up every single week. Now they don't have that. They don't have the content to sell against. And now it means that like these teams are losing value overall for their ability to sell against. And it's the business side of it is a whole nother facet that blows my mind on this. Even like James Parkinson Sternab, the owner of CCS, was talking about it earlier, and he says every CL game should be streamed or at least recorded. This is completely unfair to the teams who are being broadcast. Either stream all of the games or stream none of them. And that's something that I 100% agree with. You lose so much advantage on it. But what is your thoughts, Zigalo, on that kind of concept?
The concept of, you were saying like the expansion, or also just like the
all or nothing streaming the titles, and Face It's new thoughts on it.
As I guess an employee of Face It or a participant, I like to be honest though. Still, I mean, the expansion, at least for myself, obviously has been very, very lucrative in my own regards. But I think in general, just like expanding the amount of competition, at least to like breaking down and including more regions. Like there's also like the Mexican division, I believe, and like there's a lot of expansion elsewhere. They like broke APAC up as well, or at least reorganized it. So like it's very interesting stuff with how they're trying to incorporate players and or at least like more regional teams and just competition. But I agree though with what everyone has already said, their sentiments on the sort of all or nothing. Like I think it's a little. It's it hurts the business side of things too as well, and also like for the teams, right?
Yeah.
Because like Charis mentioned with the VODs and all that, obviously that hurts the teams on stream. We've already seen, even before in ESL, like I remember teams would not want to be casted by some of the community casters are like, we don't want teams to have our strats or see how we play leading up to later rounds in the quals.
Yeah.
So like just sort of potentially enabling that mentality, or at least like reinforcing with this whole concept of like only a single team, or sorry, a single match being played on stream a week. It definitely, I guess, hurts the somewhat competitive nature of these T2, T1 leagues, which is what I thought honestly sort of separates that from T3. Is like T3 is very open. There's a lot of teams that can come in that are unknown and compete for the first time. They can make a name for themselves or really shock people. Whereas like in T2 and in T1, like there's a sort of promotion to those leagues, right? Like you have people know about you when you're there. At least they can find out how you've played beforehand.
Yeah.
And like the leagues are set. You know your teams. You know your matchups. And at least in the ESL format before, everything was streamed, so every team had the ability to at least do some sort of picking of how you play and try to think and understand why your team does certain things as such. So I think just in general, the competitive thing is a really big concern for myself with this sort of format. But I mean, also like obviously for these orgs and for opportunities for these players that want to get represented and get sponsorships, obviously like when you're not on stream, that definitely hurts. And for the orgs, obviously, that support them, but also for opportunities, because those players want to be streamed. Those orgs that do end up supporting players, they want to be streamed. They want to have their name out there. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. It's a very interesting situation.
Scouting is an entire thing I never even thought of. That's super interesting. How does the scouting kind of work between the difference of the scenes? So is it normally that people go from T3 to Tier 2 to T1, or do people skip steps along the way? What has your experiences been kind of with the scouting, or getting scouted rather?
Getting scouted?
Yeah.
I mean, at least in T3, it was a lot of word of mouth from what I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would hope your teammate knew if another team was playing in some league, or if they had experiences with former players, such that it was very hard to scout in T3.
Yeah.
I mean, you would feel like you hit a freaking gold mine if you could find the league or that team playing in like some other league, like maybe ESA or EPS or.
Is that just because of the
like
lack
that.
of like statistics collections, VODs, everything? There's
That
just
is
no
all.
data period on these teams.
Yeah.
You pretty much just have like the R6 tab, and that's it. If you're lucky, they have R6 tab and they're not an alt. Holy
Yeah,
cow.
pretty much.
That's
I mean, it definitely
cool.
it limits your options in terms of scouting. So it really prioritizes like teams trying to build at least good strategies for themselves. And honestly, it makes maybe the play in general just a little bit not chaotic or not crazy, but like
Cheesier.
there's a lot of like, the best way I feel like, and sometimes to play in T3 is to play unpredictable. So like, you maybe you scrim and you have like a lot of different strats. That I think that really gives you an immense advantage, because if you're able to flip a look on a different site or change up an op or two on your attack and play something differently like mid-match, you have adaptation and flexibility against a lot of these different T3 teams. Because I mean, we've already mentioned in general like how much commitment do players in collegiate and T3 have compared to like a pro league player. Sometimes they don't have even a coach or an analyst to help them like develop their own play, analyze their own gameplay. There's a lot that's limited and is like in a vacuum in T3. So I think like just being a team that is very not obscure, but at least just like you have
Under the
the
radar.
dedication. Yeah, under the radar does help a lot.
Yeah.
I think it really does in T3 because of just the scouting in general.
It feels almost like
Whereas
a
in
stealth game.
T2, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in T2 in general, I think it really, the good teams really show up in T2. I feel like those matches, like, people will always complain like, hey, there's weak teams in T2. Like everyone always has their own opinions on the formats, because no ESL in general, there's been double elimination in the past. The most recent one was single elimination. There was even Swiss format, I think 2 seasons prior. So like, that itself also involves and I guess changes sort of the looks of the teams in these leagues. But at least in T2, I mean, if you were a very solid team and you have really good players, I think that usually can carry you along the way.
Yeah.
Obviously, like there is VODs, maybe in this new ecosystem that we're having with Face It, where there's less VODs, less teams on stream, that could maybe change the dynamic a bit.
Do you think it'd be more like, because we're talking about T3, it doesn't have any VOD experience, no scouting ability, nothing like that. Do you think we're going to see that a lot more in T2? where it's kind of the similar thought process of now we're going to go to those cheesy strats. Now we're going to kind of go towards these more like kind of crazy things that are coming out of the blue. Is it going to be the same kind of craziness that we see in T3 come out to T2, do you think?
Potentially. I think it really depends on the roster mentality in general. Like maybe if you are like a newer player to the T2 scene and you want to, obviously whatever you did in T3 worked, so you're going to try to continue that at least. Whereas maybe some veteran players, if they, because a lot of these teams in CL right now for US have like reoccurring players or former CL players, even Pro League players. So like their mentality, at least where they've competed in higher leagues, is just like, we're gonna do what's best for us. We're not really concerned too much about how the other team approaches our strats. More so like, do we feel like our strategies and our executes are dynamic, and also like we minimize the mistakes or the abilities for leaks and like any sort of misplays to happen. Like, is everything structurally sound on their end, and they're hoping that gameplay will elevate them to the highest level in Pro League.
Hell yeah, cool.
And I think in Pro League, honestly, like the scouting is definitely the biggest. I think it's a really huge factor.
Yeah.
I think that's where it really shows all of its benefits for a roster that has like a dedicated coach and analyst and can break down how other teams play. Because I feel like in general, when you watch T1 play, you see a lot of counter strats in motion.
Yeah, I remember talking to Lycan, and that was about 90% of the gameplay. It's basically a chess game. It's like it's more like football, where you have a playbook and you have to figure out what they're going to play, and it's kind of like a rock paper scissors game where you guess, and whoever has the overall better. Because once you get to that certain level, everyone frags out. Everyone does an incredible job of like clicking heads essentially. Yeah. And now it just comes down to how do you strategize, how do you play, how do you frag out most effectively, and that is something that is incredibly important. And we had Migs on here last week, and he was talking all about that. Of basically all of his gameplay that kind of goes into the college league is all about strategy, and it's creating this camaraderie and this teammanship of just creating this elite formation squad that has this playbook, and that's something that takes a lot of training and a lot of willpower. But with that, what do you think of the differences between collegiate versus kind of like these tier 2 and tier 3 scenes, specifically in terms of like data aggregation? Because we see, for example, like CR6, we see CRSL, even ourselves, where CRSL collects every single VOD, and then they bring it up for every single person. Do you hope that more of these T3 and Tier 2 is going to start to see that more often? Do you think it's really that much of a paramount skill? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I commemorate these leagues in collegiate as well that do a lot of statistical analysis or at least like data gathering. So I think that really, at least for myself, when I was playing collegiate, like I would see those, I'd be like, oh yes, we are using these map bands.
It basically does half the analysis
ratios,
job
like
for
all
you.
of that, man. That was my sort of like eureka moment where I was like, I can get any sort of information on these players. At least for myself, being new to the collegiate scene in general.
Yeah.
At the time, like that was like, I don't know anyone in this. I met Urine through a match. I mean, I played him and tried to counter strat his team, and they were the victors that day. I will admit, but
It's close.
it was a 7-5, 6-6, if I remember. Yeah, it was. It was a very close matchup.
Urine next Bolo when?
Yes.
No.
Canadian. Urine has a very big butt.
No.
But yeah, I mean, in general, the what collegiate is doing, I think, is great for the players and for the league as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if there are collegiate teams that will utilize this information, this data, to improve their play, or at least be able to, improve their matchups against other teams, that definitely is something that like you should be taking advantage of. And I hope that like other leagues in T3 are doing that as well, or we start doing that, because I think that is a great asset.
Yeah.
Also, it really, it livens up the experience for viewers when they're able to reference statistics, and you're able to add more to a stream or a commentary of teams that are competing. So, I think it's a great addition that CRSL and CA are doing stats in general.
I think that because of the VODs, it had a big impact on what teams made it to the top 6, top 4 in CRSL. I'd say at least half those teams regularly looked at the other team's VODs to find out counter strats and such. I know Utah, who was top 6, definitely did, and so did UTSA, because we talked to them about it, and both clearly did. but at least one of those other 4 teams did. Akron really didn't all that often. They did sometimes, but I think they looked at more how to enhance their own strategies to become unbeatable rather than look at how they can counter another team's strategies. They relied a lot on their own innovation mid-game.
And we learned just play consulate and you win games.
That's true. But I think having those VODs really helps teams out, especially with the amount of VODs you can provide if you do it right.
Agreed. Yeah, Kyle, what are your thoughts? We haven't heard from you in a while. Are you thinking about this more from a caster side, or what are you thinking about right now? Did that catch you off guard?
A little bit. I mean, as it went on, Zig really hit all the points that I want to go through. We have as this whole podcast has been going on, really, it seemed like we have very similar thought processes on it all.
Yeah. Going into this though, I'm curious, what is everyone's thoughts on what makes a skilled player in each different tier? This was an interesting question that Yureen came up with, where it's like with collegiate, it's like, okay, you frag well, you win well. But with Pro League, we just talked about, it's like you frag well, everyone frags well, so now you got to strategize well. So I'm curious, what are y'all's thoughts on what makes a good player in each one of these different scenes?
So I think personally, generally, something that I like is if you're, I don't know how to word this, like, I guess if you're comfortable in your own play in a way and you're just really cool and calm, like if you're not sitting there shaking and you're in like a 1v1, 1v2, whatever, or just like other high pressure situation and you're not having shakes, you're not having freakouts, you're not like second guessing or questioning your stuff. Like if you're just general like confidence in your play works wonders, at least in collegiate tier 3 level. Even if you're the play that you're doing is some maniac play where you're jumping out of a second story window trying to get some guy as he's rappelling on the roof, like as long as you're jumping out of that window thinking, oh yeah, I can hit this headshot, and you're like, you know where he should be, like that's good enough for collegiate in tier 3, I think. But like as you get up, then it's pretty expected that you are really comfortable. So I guess like the higher tiers specifically, I really like seeing flexibility, and not just flexibility, but like general comfort and skill across many things, because there's some players that you'll see out there that are basically just like 3 or 4 operators, and sure, they play those operators well, but then like, I mean, if the rest of their team starts struggling and their operator happens to be something that in a niche doesn't really help the team, like the only thing, we never really saw it, but like during Empire's heyday, I think Joystick got away with being basically just Ash Jaeger and the occasional like vigil play, just because of how well the team worked and how unknown the team's strats were.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of saw that too with Virtus Pro in a way with Rask. Rask has been the same idea of just the Ash Jaeger player. But I mean, once those, and the thing is, like nowadays, those operators are pretty commonplace. It's not like, you know, you're disappointed that you're bringing in Ash or Jaeger. They're both pretty staple picks and always have been. Mm-hmm. But like, there's certain people that are really good on shields, and you take them off a shield, and then they're kind of like dropped a couple tier levels even, in the most extreme cases. And it's crazy because if your team is struggling, then say like your team is struggling outside or whatever, and they all get picked off and you're left alone as the shield, like you're not going to be winning any 1vx's most likely, unless it's like a straight 1v1 or something. It's just like, I got really off track. It's like the flexibility of players, if you're able to play multiple operators at the same consistent level, is really nice.
Yeah, Zig, what's your thoughts on different tier levels and different big things that make you skillful in each tier level?
I was gonna take the more so team approach, I suppose.
Sure, go for it.
Um, I was gonna say, I think personally, keep everything short and sweet. I think the T3, the biggest thing that a team or like a group of players can have is obviously the mechanical and sort of the game knowledge. Like they need to be, actual decent players at the game to start off. Like if you have good aim, if you have good movement, if you have an understanding of how operators and utility coordinate work together, I think that gets you really far in T3.
Yeah.
I think once you've proven that and you get eventually to a T2 level, I think the biggest thing there is sort of the mental. And I was liking a lot of what Cherish said, where like confidence is a major key in T2. When you're playing against teams composed of strong players, it really takes camaraderie, the chemistry, at least the calmness of mind. Like people tilting obviously can throw matches. Your mentality we've seen sadly with teams like the old EG where if everything starts falling apart for you and like you're not confident in yourselves, you can really just lose. You can drop the ball like massively.
Yeah.
And you can really squander your opportunity as a good player on a team if you really just are just not confident, I suppose. They're just not at least confident enough in your teammates. Like there's a lot that goes into a good team, whether it be trust or ability to make sacrifices. Like, maybe you feel like you're the best Ash Jaeger main in the world, but one day someone tells you, hey, maybe we need Zoe for the strat or a sledge. And the flexibility that Cherish mentioned is very important as well, is believing in yourself to be able to take on different roles in order to ensure the team operates better as a whole. And then I think going up in the T1, if you have a solid team and you do really well and you win the relegations, you beat a former PL team and you're there at the level of teams like SSG and NA or G2 and EU, stuff like that, even Fnatic and APAC.
Yeah.
That what really comes down to there, in my opinion, is the composition and the preparation of these teams. And I say composition as in like how all the skill sets of these players, how do they synergize? How does a coach or the team themselves, realize each other's strengths and weaknesses and put forth their best strategies or at least their best counter to how other teams operate in PL. And then in preparation, obviously, a lot falls on the shoulders of coaches and analysts who do a lot of work for these teams. But are you able to get a good read or a good beat on how other teams like to play, where their trump card is, like how would they want to play in general? Like how can you limit that? How can you at least enable your own play to at least be an annoyance or throw theirs off?
Yeah.
All of that, all of the chess move sort of plays are in effect there in Pro League in my mind, because I think just the stakes are very high. Obviously, like as we've mentioned, the players very committed, very talented. They've proven that, and it really comes down to all of the preparation, all of the work that gets put forth on match day, and then obviously being able to execute that. So I think those are my sort of opinions on that.
Yeah. I'm also super excited to see constantly. We saw this in League of Legends for a while. The first couple seasons of League of Legends were pretty rough. I mean, like it was high level play. Yeah, in the Pro League it looked really cool and it was awesome. But it wasn't really until season 5 or 6 that we really started to see these like amazing players, these amazing teams come out where it's like, this is absolutely awe-inspiring. And I think for this season of Pro League, I am really excited. I think we finally are starting to hit that point. We're starting to hit it in stride.
Yeah.
Just watching the grand finals last year for EG versus Space Station was absolutely incredible. That was one of the few games that I actually was on the edge of my seat. Cool. A lot of this goes back to teamwork. So my question is here, how do you guys build the ideal team? This is kind of more on like a GM level, but I'm curious on what you guys' thoughts are. What kind of stuff do you look out for not just you get scouted as a player, but you scouting the team to join? What do you look out for? What are kind of some kind of red flags, or as I've been told today, green flags for things that you want to move forward with?
Zig, you want to take it first, or?
Sure.
All right.
At least for myself, my own thought process whenever I tried to join a team or meet a new guy, like new sort of roster, play with different players I never really knew much about. The big green flag, I suppose, in this case was really the mental and the character. Like, there's a lot of I don't want to say egos in T3, but there's a lot of people who sometimes
Cherish.
see everything right. See,
You may not want to say there's a lot of egos, but there's a lot of egos.
all right.
I will come out and say that very much.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I
Okay,
think
sorry.
in general, there's a lot of, there's new players in the scene who are trying to get into T3. There are old players who may have not progressed beyond T3. And I think just the biggest thing in general is like, if you are in the stage of T3 or collegiate and you want to elevate your game to a higher level, you first have to be very, very coachable and at least just accepting of criticism. And you can't have a sort of toxic mentality of, oh, I assume what I did is right. When someone calls me out, it's because they're upset at their player. They're just trying to find excuses. Like, whenever I try to play on teams, I always try to find the guys that, like, obviously were dedicated, but also were, they were chill and they realized people make mistakes. No one is perfect. You can't always be droned the best way. There is going to sometimes be a misdrone. You can't always win your one, or your teammate can't always win their one and step up and just make the play to win a round or win a game. There's a lot of growth that needs to happen for players that are in T3. And I think if you just close your ears and you try to assume everything you've learned thus far is the right way, and you're not accepting of criticism, or at least not willing to learn or adapt as a player to fit the mold of the team that you're trying to build, I think that's just the biggest factor for myself when I tried to find teammates. Something I definitely looked at when I've joined the multitude of teams I played, even the team I'm playing for right now, when I joined them 2 days before the qualifiers to play for them. So really, obviously, the opportunity there is pretty good.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to join a team that might go into pro league? Yeah, sure, of course. But
Yeah, I'll hop on. I'll help out. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Like, obviously, if I didn't think those guys had it in them, I wouldn't have said yes. I would have maybe tried my best to find another team that was somehow looking for a sole American at the 2-day mark before the qualifier. But those are great guys. I love all my teammates, and I mean, like, that is just the biggest determining factor in my mind. The skill, you can always improve as a player, is in my mind, and as an individual. But like, if your mentality, it's hard to change the mentality, I suppose. Whereas it's not hard to pick a new op and try to put in the time to learn, or at least put in the time outside of the game to maybe work on your movement. There's aim trainers, there's all that stuff people use now. If you have G Fuel, I guess that helps from time to time. but like, I think just the biggest thing is the mental in my mind. It's just how are these players accepting? Are they trying to like learn meta? Are they trying to understand the game at a higher level? Or are they assuming that they can just brute force it with their gun skill, with the few ops they know how to play, and they just assume that you can just assemble 5 people together who are skilled players and just make it happen? Mm-hmm. I think it really comes down to the characters of each individual. And then, I mean, I always say the team is as strong as its weakest link. So like, even one person who brings down the mental or even like causes issues can definitely be a detriment in a team. And it's something that the team and everyone need to realize and just, I guess, sort of come to terms with, is when you like, how can we improve from this? Can we help this individual, this and that? I think there's just, obviously it's way harder to change someone's mindset, but for me, like, if you're a good guy, I'm fine playing with you.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of coming into this too, I have a question in terms of what are some of the ways your team solves? You were talking off the podcast about Elmo. So what are some of the ways that your team solves problems and conflicts, and what are some of the best practices for your team building and improvement that you've seen?
I think in general, we grow a lot. Obviously, we learn a lot in the scrims, but the growth, or I guess the lessons we learn, is always, in my opinion, afterwards, where we break down our gameplay. We talk amongst each other. Mm-hmm. We go through situations that were rough, that at the time maybe we couldn't understand or we reacted poorly to. So like, in my mind, when you're in the match, everything, you want to be laser focused on what you're doing and how you can adapt. If there is something that the other team presents, like, how can you keep playing the chess game? How can you keep trying to stay a move ahead of your opponents?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, when there is factors like people tilting and there is, any sort of that sort of, I I guess just conflict
Yeah.
in general. Like, it's very hard to bring stuff back. You definitely, some people will react to certain things differently than others, and it's always important, at least in my mind, when I try to, we ever go through a spell like that, is whenever there is a sort of conflict or people want to argue or say, oh, what happened here? Like, why wasn't this picked up? It's just like, yo, calm it down. Let's refocus. The next round is right here. We can't be talking about what happened before at this very moment. We need to start figuring out how we can change this to start winning rounds back, or how can we continue to keep improving or keeping the lead, staying on top of these guys. So, I mean, you did mention the Elmo. It is an acronym that we use, or at least I use sometimes as well, to try to bring everyone back. If there ever is a situation, we'll yell that out. We'll just be like, yo, squash it. Elmo, just let it go. If there's any sort of bickering, just let it go, man.
A polite way of saying shut the fuck up and get your head in the game.
Definitely an interpretation for sure.
Cherish,
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on Tilton?
So I think I want to take it a slightly different way and a slightly different path than Zig did. And I kind of want to go more in like both my personal experiences and then like out of game stuff. So
Okay.
I think a big point to generally trying to squash, at least collegiate wise, that I've experienced, trying to squash some of that animosity or potential clashing and stuff, is like my teammates and I would, at the end of the day, I tried to like let us realize like, yeah, we're on a comp team and we're trying to do our best and place as high as we can and stuff, but at the end of the day, we're friends and I want us to be friends. So we would try and hang out outside of class, outside of practice rather, after class, grab lunch. I know once we all went and had team Korean barbecue. It's just like little bonding stuff like that. I felt had went a long way because we're still kind of friendly, even though the team kind of split apart after our second season between graduating and just people not wanting to play with newer people. So we basically had a full rebuild last year.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much just yeah, we're still all friendly and still friends, and I could already see the difference between 5 people who didn't really hang out together compared to 5 people who were hanging out and friends for going on almost a year. And I mean, it's just you settle things obviously in a much different way with people you're comfortable with and friendly with than with people you're just teammates with.
Yeah.
And that's just so obvious between anything really. So I think that's a big thing that people, don't just play together, don't just practice together. Like actually try and be friends. Like actually, it sounds so. It sounds almost like I'm talking down or like talking to children in a way, but like that's kind of what it comes down to me, is just try and be friendly with your teammates and be comfortable with them so that you end up being nicer to them and you don't have
Treat them like
this,
people, not just bots.
exactly. Like I don't know. It's you're more likely to treat your friend nicely than just your teammate.
Yeah.
Like you'll be more helpfully critical to them. Like instead of just simple wording, like you could do this better instead of you're doing this wrong. Like
Yeah.
that's just the difference between friends and teammates.
Mhm.
And even in the most extreme cases, again, like that you're doing this wrong could expand in someone's mind and break a team apart.
Yeah. Cool. I have another question here too, kind of going back to what we were talking about with what you do after competitive, and I think this will most likely be our last question, and then we'll open the floor to Q&As. If you guys have any questions in chats, feel free to let us know, and we'll ask them to any of these 2 beautiful guests, or We can ask it to Urine and get him to wave on cam again for you to clip him.
People are clipping it today.
Oh yes, they love you, Urine. You and your pale flashbang face.
I'm getting clipped a lot.
Most traditional collegiate athletes move on to the professional scene after collegiate, but in esports, we've kind of seen a backwards trend where young pro players will use their skills in the later stages of their career to get full scholarships to the college esports programs. As pro players, how do you guys, or I guess more for Zigalo, how do you and your fellow pros regard the collegiate esports ecosystem?
I believe it's honestly a very I'm trying to find the perfect word for it, but I think it's honestly like a very interesting or at least enticing ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
I liked a lot of Cherish's points because I mean, even when I played on my team with UB, you know, the experience of being able to know the guys outside of the game, meet up with them afterwards, that was something I never had on a T3 roster or ever before or prior to that moment. So I honestly missed my time at collegiate as well. I had some really good people and friends that I still talk and play with today. So it's collegiate is a great opportunity for a lot of people that want to get involved in Siege or at least be able to meet people as well, make some friends. And I mean, for myself and at least for my teammates, because all 4 of them were from SFU, they were competing, I believe, in CEA, CR6, even CRSL. I think just past spring. So like, I know all of them for sure. They definitely would say that their experiences in collegiate as a team definitely built them up to like where they are right now as pro players. So I think collegiate is amazing. I mean, if I was still in college and pro didn't work out, I would go back honestly and try to go back to collegiate.
Just get that master's degree and come back.
Like me. Yeah, but collegiate was great, and I didn't actually know too much about all the pro players or players in general that would go back to collegiate, but I'm not surprised, honestly. Yeah. So I think it's just a testament to itself of the ecosystem that collegiate R6 provides for the community.
Oh yeah, makes me happy to hear. Cherish, what are your views?
I mean, it's pretty much just the same. I think it's hard to not like go the same way, but like I had already mentioned, it offers something that a lot of stuff without, a team house or long trips or anything. Collegiate just offers a lot more friendlier of an environment. And just because by nature you're already, even if you're commuting, you're by nature at the most like 20 minutes apart from one another.
Yeah.
So it's just a very friendly, closer team environment, even if it's just it offers to, because of that, just a more casual environment. So I think comparatively, I mean, that could even be a point as to why you would say collegiate in a general broad sense isn't as like ultra competitive even as some of tier 3 is.
Yeah.
So because even in the lowest teams of tier 3 that I've casted, it's been, I mean, there's still that absolute drive, but just to win, and they're super frustrated with not winning if they end up in the season in relegations or like whatever it is, 07. They're super frustrated themselves, but even though, I've played on a collegiate, one of my collegiate rosters I played with in the past, we went like 1-4 on the season or something, and we were still, having fun with our games. We were still having fun together and with Siege. And I think that just shows a lot of the difference between the two settings. So,
yeah, for sure. Noreen, do you have any final thoughts on the whole podcast or just this question?
I think collegiate's really unique in the sense of how the community is built. I don't know if Pro League and Tier 2 and Tier 3 really have that sense of community that collegiate has. When we do like 10 mans, obviously, although the amount of people I've been getting lately is disappointing. But
hey, there was a week where you got almost 30 people there once, and I was just like, "What is going on here?"
That's true.
If I think time and they allow me, I'm hopping in.
Do it. Come through. It'd be sick.
But I definitely think that collegiate definitely has a unique community and that aspect of community to it, where a lot of the people are there to have a good time, so they'll come out to the community nights, they'll come out to interact and chat, and watch the streams of other collegiate games. So it's really unique in that sense. That because I don't really think that the other scenes do that as much. Not even in other games in collegiate really do it as much. In my experience in Overwatch, it wasn't like that. It was more of your team stuck with your team.
Yep.
Instead of teams intermixing and playing with one another. So I found it kind of unique in that sense.
Yeah, Overwatch definitely had that same level of secrecy. Well,
Yeah.
thank you to everyone who was watching. I appreciate all y'all's time. Cherish, do you have any shout outs you want to make, or Zigalo?
I'm good.
No shout outs, Cherish? Not even to your mother? Come on. What about you, Zigalo? You want to plug your socials?
I don't know if
Say hi, Mom, like Gafama did last night on stream.
I didn't get warned for it.
Did he get warned for it? I didn't know.
Yeah, they said he's not allowed to do it, and Alphama was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, it's insane that I got warned for saying "I love you, Mom" because she's staying up till 2 a.m. to watch me play American Pro League.
Oh, that's so sad.
Respect.
Respect, honestly.
Yeah. What about you, Zigalo?
Shout out to my mom and dad.
Hey, there we go.
There you go.
After that. I mean, shout out to a lot of my former and now current teammates. I mean, it was a great time playing with all of them. I learned a lot on each experience I had. And I mean, like I said, I wanted to play with people I thought were great individuals and wanted to play this game to either get better or have fun, regardless of their motives. I respect them for how they chose to approach this game in the community. So, I mean, every opportunity I learned immensely, and I improved and got to the point that I am now. So, I mean, shout out to all of them. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have those opportunities with those great gentlemen.
Yeah.
Most of them were men, but yeah.
Hey,
So, yeah.
that's a whole nother topic within esports that needs to be fixed. Cool. Well, thank you so much again for coming on and joining us for this podcast. I have been your host, Sam Tiki, joined with Nick Urine and our two guests, the wonderful Kyle Cherish and the even more wonderful Moss Zigalo. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night, everyone.